Today I'm going to talk about Dick Vermeil. I'm going to talk about his early life, his coaching career, his coaching philosophy, and his coaching style, and a little bit about his family. So in his early life, he was born in 1936. He grew up in a family who owned a vineyard, so the talk of his family was about wine, and uh, they that was the talk of the table. They were hardworking, uh, so that's where he kind of got his work ethic from, is from his family. So he started teaching or coaching at the high school level in 1959. Then, after receiving a master's degree, he secured a position at the University of Stanford in 1965. And then later, he would then go to UCLA. In 1974, he became the head coach, and he led the football team to the Rose Bowl championships in that year. Soon after he won the championships at the Rose Bowl, he actually left the team to join the downtrodden Philadelphia Eagles. So in 1976, so he left the team, and the funny thing, when he was leaving the team and they offered him the job, at first he was like, why would I take that job? Your fans are horrible. Your team's a losing team. Like, why would I take that job? And he actually had a family meeting, and he got outvoted. He chose to accept the job, and the rest of his family voted for him to stay at UCLA. And he ended up taking the job as the head coach of Philadelphia, and I think it was within the first 3 years they came close to the championship, but they ended up losing in Super Bowl 15. He soon then retired after Super Bowl 15 in 1983. He retired because he was an emotional man, so he was super emotional. He felt like he let his team down, and he actually called his wife one day and was just like, during the season, it was like, I need you to come pick me up because I'm just emotionally not able to do it. So he just worked himself so hard to the point where he just wasn't able to continue. So he retired from his job in 1983. And then afterwards he became a broadcaster, started a broadcasting career with CBS and ABC for about 14 years. And during this time, he wasn't really taking a break from coaching, but he was spending a lot of times watching all these other NFL coaches, seeing what they were doing, watching their practice, finding things he liked, and finding things that he didn't like, but just gathering all this information throughout these years. And then in 1997, he returned to the league as head coach of the St. Louis Rams and led them to their first Super Bowl victory. And then after the victory, he retired, and he talks about how he just jumped the gun too much on it. He said that was one of the biggest mistakes he made. He retired too soon, and he thought he could have done a lot more. But he then came back in 2001 as the head coach for the Chiefs, and they didn't win any Super Bowls or anything like that, but he retired afterwards in 2006. So I'm going to talk a little bit about his coaching philosophy. I have this at the bottom of my thing, but I'm going to talk about it first. Hard work is not a form of punishment. He was all about hard work. He would have his practices. He would do a lot of 2-day practices. He was always working. He tried to weed out the people that he didn't want, on his teams. He wanted only the hardworking people who would put in the effort and wanted to win and not for the money. So his first part of his philosophy is make sure people know you care about them. So when you talk about making sure people care about them, it's to win over to win someone over first, you must win over their hearts. People care about people who care about them, regardless of what uniform you're wearing. People are people first, so you should treat them like that. Second is to be a good example. So the most influential person is someone who's worthy of it. Your actions speak for themselves, and everybody should listen to them. You could carry an attitude of hope and motivation. You need to carry an attitude and hope and motivation every time you walk through the door. So just a lot of motivation. He wanted to be that role model when he walked into the room. So when you looked up to, a lot of players actually referred to him after he retired as it's like almost losing another dad or a dad. So then the third one is creating an atmosphere that people enjoy working in. The quality of a person's attitude directs, the population of the atmosphere they create. So he wanted to approach everyone consistently and optimistic and with a positive attitude, because he wanted to make people know he appreciates them, which improves, people's self-esteem and encourage them to go on and do greater things and become a better person. So he actually, when he was at UCLA, he worked there at the same time as John Wooden, and part of his philosophy, there's a quote that he used. It's, "Your success is not determined by the game you win, it is determined by how you handle your losses." So that was another part of it. He learned from all these other coaches. He's always trying to improve himself. So fourth, define, delegate, and then lead. So you want to define your mission and let the people who are working for you know what your goal is. And then for delegate, you want to know what your weaknesses are, and you want to know the strengths of the people who are working with you, and delegate the jobs to the places where your weaknesses are, so you could create a whole atmosphere where the team is working properly. And then lead with love. He was very emotional. He told his players he loved them, and they told it to him back. Like, he created this atmosphere like another family within the sport. So, talking about his philosophy, I'm going to talk a little bit about his coaching style. So, at the beginning of the years when he was teaching at UCLA and Philadelphia, I would say he was 100% command coaching style. He would have, for instance, before the Rose Bowl, they only had, you have like that week prepared to prepare for the game. He actually did 2 days during that time and had his players have 2 practices a day, and just work 100% working all the time. And it actually ended up biting. They came back, the players created like a little petition, and they were like, "Hey, we're not going to practice today." And he came in and was like, "Do you guys want to go tell like your children or your family members that you played the greatest team?" Because they were playing against Ohio State, which were undefeated at the time. Or do you want to say you won against one of the best teams in the league in the Rose Bowl? And then he just left. So he said, "Get on the field," and they did. So he definitely had more of a command. But later on in his career, after coaching with Philadelphia, and he returned back to the Rams, he kind of had the same scenario happen, except this time he listened to what the players were saying. He said, "I didn't listen to all of what they were saying because I know what works, but at the same time, I need to do stuff. I need to do stuff differently." So he kind of had. I would say he's still command, but he still had a cooperative. I said that wrong. But he still had a command style, but he was a little bit more cooperative and worked with his staff and with the athletes. And his later of his career when he was a lot older. So now I'm going to talk about the family. So the family, I would say before talking about his immediate family that all his players were, all of them related to him as like another father figure. And he just like I said earlier, he just told everybody he loved them, because he did. He actually he just was some emotional guy. He loved his athletes. So now I'll talk about his family. So his wife Carol, and then he had 3 children and 11 grandchildren, and he doesn't really talk much about, like, I couldn't find much about the family, but the family itself, right now, so Vermeulen retired from coaching football, and now he owns his own vineyard. So he owns Vermeil, Vermilion wines, and that's what he's currently doing. But he said he still uses the same philosophy as he did coaching as when he works. So it's just something he brought with him his whole life. He's always his wife actually says he's probably crazy because of how much he works. He'll never sit still. And that is Dick Vermeulen. Just a incredible, hardworking, always working. Just expects, he just like Coach Wood, and he expects, he wants to make the players a better person than what they were. And that is it.